Injuries are part of professional wrestling. This isn't ballet. You've heard that before, and there isn't a single wrestler who hasn't faced some type of injury. Decades ago, wrestlers used to notoriously downplay their injuries and work through it due to losing their spot on the card, or the big push, which meant more money and more exposure in the long run. Untimely injuries have been huge setbacks for many a big superstar in the WWE. Let's look at 10 unfortunate injuries that held superstars from a big push. Let's start with a famous example from the last decade. Number 10, Finn Balor, summer of 2016. Finn Balor remains one of the most highly anticipated main roster call-ups from NXT in the past decade. The fact that he was picked in the first round of the 2016 WWE Draft without ever competing on the main roster at that time was a huge indication of the future plans for him. His main roster debut was promising as well, beating the then top star Roman Reigns in his first night on Raw to secure a spot in a match that would crown him the first ever WWE Universal Champion. The plan was always for Finn to win and become the next top star in WWE, and when he did become the first ever Universal Champion, he suffered a shoulder injury via a buckle bomb to the ring barrier outside the ring, forcing him to vacate the title the next night on Monday Night Raw. The plans for Balor to go on a tear as a Universal Champion never happened, and when he returned in 2017, he was never treated like a big deal. He was never at that level ever again on the main roster. Maybe in the future? I guess the only positive is it led to Kevin Owens winning the Universal Championship, which was pretty sweet. Number 9, Dolph Ziggler, 2013. The reaction that Dolph Ziggler got on Raw after WrestleMania when he walked out with the Money in the Bank briefcase in his hand and cashed it in was one for the ages. When he took that title off Alberto Del Rio, the reaction was pure electricity. He instantly turned into a babyface in the eyes of some fans. He ultimately, though, suffered an untimely concussion over a month after the big win. 2 months after his title, Ziggler faced Del Rio in a rematch at the Payback pay-per-view, where a double turn happened and he lost the World Heavyweight Championship back to Del Rio. He would never reach the same heights again, although he did have iconic moments later on in his career, such as his performance at Survivor Series 2014 and his career-saving Intercontinental title win at No Mercy 2016. It needs to be said, Dolph Ziggler is a first ballot WWE Hall of Famer. Number 8, Mr. Kennedy, 2007. Mr. Kennedy was a superstar that many people felt WWE had huge plans for in the future. He won the Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania 23, starting a storyline where he was going to cash in the following year at WrestleMania 24. However, he would sustain a tricep injury that was thought to be major, resulting in WWE making Kennedy lose the briefcase to Edge. It was unfortunate because there was a massive plan for him, with a huge amount of time dedicated to it. The injury wasn't even that serious as first anticipated, meaning he could have still held the briefcase? This would be the peak of Kennedy in WWE after alleged issues backstage with Randy Orton and John Cena. He was seen as someone who was deemed unsafe in the ring. Now, whether or not this was a part of his WWE release is unclear. Number 7, Bray Wyatt, 2016. The summer of 2016 was Bray Wyatt in a not-so-good position. He was riding high with all the swamp wizardry ways he had created with his character, but he still didn't have a good spot on WrestleMania and was instead in a segment with The Rock, one that resulted in him getting kind of laid out. While some fans weren't too happy with WWE's treatment of Bray, he was rewarded only one night later on Raw, where the wheels were set in motion for him to turn from a villain, a heel, to a babyface, a hero, an idea that fans were fully on board with. Just as Wyatt was gaining momentum as a newly turned babyface, Wyatt got injured at a live event. When he returned 2 months later, the Wyatt family were heels, villains again, and they were involved in a kind of less than stellar feud with the New Day, which did feature an underrated cinematic match filmed at the Wyatt compound. Number 6, Paige, 2017-2018. In one of the more unfortunate instances on this list, an injury proved to be severe. Paige suffered a serious neck injury, followed by some unfortunate setbacks outside of the ring in 2016. The former NXT Women's Champion returned in November 2017 after a surgery, with Mandy Rhodes and Sonya Deville by her side, forming the faction known as Absolution. It was a return following a neck injury and 2 suspensions. She had a lot to prove and came back to a big ovation. Tragedy unfortunately struck again with a second injury during a live event tag team match, an injury that Paige blamed only on herself and no one else. For the next few years that followed that, Paige took on non-physical roles in WWE, including being an authority figure on SmackDown. She would leave the company altogether when her contract expired in July 2022, and she would find a new house in pro wrestling in AEW, where she made her triumphant in-ring return at the Full Gear pay-per-view, defeating Britt Baker. Number 5, Jason Jordan, 2017-2018. Former SmackDown Tag Team Champion Jason Jordan was revealed as the son of Kurt Angle. This set him up for what would be a spotlight to turn him into the next big superstar on Monday Night Raw. But the build-up never really built into the momentum that some had intended. Jordan would win, though, the Raw Tag Team Championships with Seth frickin' Rollins, becoming one of the few Triple Crown Tag Team Champions in WWE. They would lose those titles just 34 days later at the 2018 Royal Rumble. Jordan would roll this over into what was supposed to be a feud with the then beast-slaying Seth Rollins, only for it never to be fulfilled in any way in any match or any follow-up beyond an angle where Jordan cost Rollins and Roman Reigns the Raw Tag Team titles. His kayfabe father and Raw general manager Kurt Angle would send him home in February of 2018. The next day, word would get out that Jordan endured a neck surgery for a herniated disc, but he would never return to the ring. His Royal Rumble match would be his last match. Jordan has since taken on a producer role for WWE backstage. Number 4, Bobby Lashley, 2007. Lashley was a clear-cut Vince McMahon favorite in 2007, as demonstrated by being featured in the billionaire versus billionaire match representing Donald Trump versus Vince McMahon's Umaga at WrestleMania 23. At the Great American Bash that same year, Lashley fell short in a well-contested WWE title bout against John Cena. However, he would suffer a torn rotator cuff injury in his shoulder and was written off TV soon after. 6 months later, Lashley was released by WWE at his own request. Very odd. Why slow down the momentum then? In an interview with Rainmaker NYC, he clarified by saying the following: "I was making a tremendous amount of money then. It was an opportunity for me to go fight and legitimize my character a little bit." In the years, he definitely did just that. Lashley would balance roles between wrestling and Impact and kicking ass with an impressive 15-2 mixed martial arts record with fights in Strikeforce and Bellator. In 2018, the Almighty returned to WWE in a big way right after WrestleMania to crush Elias. In the years that followed, he would go on to dominate with the Hurt Business faction, win the United States Championship and the WWE Championship as a thunderous performer. Number 3, Stone Cold Steve Austin, SummerSlam 1997. An unfortunately mistimed piledriver with Owen Hart at SummerSlam 1997 nearly derailed the career of one of the greatest of all time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The neck injury he would suffer with near paralysis is what many people consider the beginning of what would end his career in 2003. However, he would bounce back from this, and during the time where he was recouping from this injury, he would deliver the first iconic and momentous Stone Cold Stunner on the boss, Mr. McMahon. With Owen Hart sporting t-shirts like "I broke Austin's neck," Austin would eventually come back to the ring and seek his revenge and go on to become what we all know he is, one of the greatest of all time. Number 2, Triple H, 2006-2007. Triple H's left quadricep tear in 2001 resulted in him missing out on a big spot at the whole invasion angle. He suffered the unfortunate tear on his right quadricep in early 2007, very similar to the previous injury. Yeah, that's right, he tore both of his quads. This time, he would miss out of his first WrestleMania, where he was rumored to be going up against John Cena in a rematch from the previous year. 7 months on the shelf, a whole lot of rehab, Triple H made a triumphant return at SummerSlam 2007. Number 1, Cody Rhodes, 2022. Cody Rhodes' return to WWE at WrestleMania 38 was one of the biggest moments of the year. It was no secret that he was coming back. The anticipation was through the roof, and that stadium in Dallas exploded when they heard that theme song. It marked the first major jump of a talented superstar from All Elite Wrestling to WWE. His return saw him face Seth Rollins in a trilogy of matches many people believe are some of the best of the year. However, the defining match in this series was at Hell in a Cell. Rhodes would suffer a torn pectoral muscle training for the big cage match, a devastating injury, but he decided to tough it out anyway. I was in the crowd for this show. The sight of him removing that glorious robe to reveal the extent of the injury sucked the air out of the room. Everyone was shocked. How was he doing this? And somehow he ended up taking out the win, winning 3 matches consecutively against Seth Rollins, which is no easy feat to begin with, let alone getting in the ring under those circumstances in a freaking Hell in a Cell match. Oh wow, you watched the whole video. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to Sportskeeda Wrestling.